if you get to a certain point where you have broken the camel's back, honestly, you may not recover for years.
Hi there, and welcome to Am I Crazy Or? The podcast where I, Lisa Påske, businesswoman, entrepreneur, and general troublemaker, take on all the ways that society gaslight us into thinking we are going crazy. This season, we are tackling the perimenopause. They often call it the second spring. I think it should be called monsoon season. But I'm not doing any of this alone. In each episode, I'll be interviewing and talking to experts, specialists, and women going through it, giving you all the information that you need to make more sense of this chaotic period of your life. In this episode, I have a very special guest. I got to chat to Lynn, who's a former TV presenter with CNN and E! News, who has for the last 25 years been an executive leadership coach. Now, Lynn is super passionate about getting more women into leadership and also more diversity, which I 100% support. I talked to Lynn about her menopause journey, but also about how companies can support women better and also empower them through this period and this stage of their life. Honestly, this chat was so inspiring and so empowering. It's going to be laughter, it's going to be tears. You have been warned. Lynn, it is an honor to meet you. I'm so excited to chat to you. Welcome.
Well, I'm happy to be here, Lisa. Thank you very much for having me.
Great. So let's start off with you telling me a bit about your background and what you do.
Well, I'm an executive leadership coach, and I came to that position over a course of kind of evolution in my life. I moved to Great Britain 25 years ago. I had been in the television business for 15 years, and I had been actually a very successful television journalist. And I got here and I shot 2 television shows that didn't air, series that didn't air. And I thought to myself, oh, that's a sign. I need to kind of rethink and pivot a bit. And at that time, I had a 3-year-old daughter. And I said, you know what, I'm going to step back. I'm going to reconsider. I'm going to raise my daughter for a while, just really focus on being a good mom. And I'm going to think about what impact I can have in another industry. And it was my husband who recommended that I try coaching. He said, you've been coaching all your life. You're a natural coach. Why don't you retrain? And I did. I took his advice, best advice he ever gave me. And I took a couple of years and I trained as a coach. And I trained it first as a life coach and quickly realized that that was not going to be for me at all. And I went back and I got a really good break with my GP on Harley Street, who was opening up a complementary practice to her practice. And she said, come in and, cut your teeth here. And she gave me a client who turned out to be a great client. And he took me in-house as his coach, but also to coach his top team. And so during that process, I started to study to become an executive coach because I knew that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to talk about strategy. I wanted to talk about being an effective leader. I wanted to talk about teams. And what became increasingly obvious is that I wanted to talk about women in leadership. So I really realized that this was my purpose. It aligned with my values, with my beliefs, and also I completely could understand what it's like to navigate your way in a professional business environment, but not only that, high stakes environment, because I had come from a high stakes environment and was interested in making sure that women could navigate that in a positive way. So here I am. I've been a Marshall Goldsmith executive leadership coach. It's a very specific type of coach. I work with Fortune 500 to 100 clients and successful entrepreneurs. And of course, I give back with mentoring and sponsoring women in particular who I want to see at the top table. Yeah. And, we need diversity, equity, and inclusion at the top table from underrepresented communities, from women to ethnic people, to different people with disabilities. This is what makes the world go round. that kind of diverse thinking in a global environment in which we live today is incredibly important, not just because it's a social thing, a social need, but because it has an impact on the bottom line. There is a business case for diversifying your company, your business, your corporation. It just makes sense.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that was one of the focuses I always had wherever I did. So when I ran an agency, I very much wanted to have an international agency so that you'd have different cultures, because I really believe that the importance of like progress and creativity particular is so much better when you have loads of different ways of thinking. That also comes with challenges, but that's the thing, is like, just because it's difficult doesn't mean you shouldn't do it.
Of course, you're right. When you diversify your workplace, naturally there are more clashes, but that's on the leader.
Yeah.
To be honest,
100%.
To provide an environment where people feel safe to talk about themselves, to blend, and to be open. It is on the leader to provide that kind of environment, and the clashes are worth it if you work the kinks out.
That's so true. I honestly think that this how scared people are of confrontation is such a missed opportunity to really like grow, but also that's where the progress really lies. When you can, and this is so important to the world, especially right now, to be able to disagree and still try to understand the other point of view. Because saying the same thing more loud or more like repeating doesn't change anyone's mind. And so that diversity is important, not just in businesses for creativity, etc., but also so important for the world.
Listen, we're living in a crazy world right now.
Yeah.
Where there is a dearth of good leadership across the globe, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that leadership is homogenous, which really produces black holes. The inability to be able to see the big picture beyond your big picture and your personal desires. And if we look at those clashes and cultural differences, the Brits, they aren't people who like confrontation by nature. But confrontation is necessary for change. Yeah. And confrontation does not have to be violent or big or over the top.
No.
It can be productive conversations.
Yeah.
Just starting the productive conversation and stepping outside of your comfort zone is necessary for productive change.
Oh, for sure. And I think I was talking to one of my mentoring clients this week about how important it is to tell your truth. Because when you do not say the things that you're feeling or thinking or your views, it builds up to resentment or to fear and as soon as you say what you think, and even if it is hard to say, the kind of energy of it almost disappears immediately, because truth doesn't really weigh anything, and your truth is your truth, and it doesn't mean to be the truth. But this is I've always thought business is all about psychology, about understanding people and helping them understand each other, but also understand themselves, because that's almost like a compass, isn't it? Like, where am I? Where is everyone else? And how do I navigate through based on that? And it's a shame that confrontation or disagreeing is so avoided.
I know, but you know what? We really underestimate the learnings that we take away from those kinds of disagreements and those types of conversations. It expands your horizon, to be able to have conflict, to have healthy conflict is really important. And it expands your mind.
Yeah.
And we need that. Today, we need that because there is no getting away from the connectivity that we have globally.
Yeah.
Everybody is on social media.
Yeah.
Everybody can connect in a matter of microseconds.
Yeah.
So you can't run away from that. So better to be able to navigate that and try to understand different people, different cultures, different environments, men and women. We think so differently.
Yes.
We need to actually take the time to go, right.
Yeah.
The world is a different place from where it was 50 years ago, 30, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago.
Yes.
We are changing so rapidly. And the key to understanding that is really effective communication and sharing.
Yeah.
Sharing things we like, things we don't like,
Yeah.
and actively listening, not just kind of going, really?
Yeah.
But actively listening to what someone is saying, because they will in turn tell you how they are feeling.
Yeah.
There's always a message behind the words.
That's so true. Yeah, I love that. So, let's talk about menopause. So, it was so interesting when I had the first chat with you, because everyone's story of perimenopause and menopause is very different, and there's so many challenges to navigate. So there's a few things I want to talk about today. One, your journey, but also because you have coached so many women, it would be great to have your view on that. So first of all, like, what was the menopause like for you?
Listen, I can just remember the build up to the menopause. And I was asking my mother, what was it like? And she said, I had a hysterectomy at 34 years old. So I didn't have menopause as an average woman would have it. But she did tell me that she was like a little fire all the time. She always had a little oven that was on. And so I was prepared for that part. But the first time I really realized I was in perimenopause, and I hadn't had a doctor tell me this. I was sitting in an interview. It was in the early days of arriving here. And all of a sudden, I was aflush with serious heat. So much heat that I could feel like the perspiration start to bubble up on my face. And I just felt like, I was melting. And it was so embarrassing. It was so embarrassing. But I knew, I was like this, oh my God, this is a hot flash. This is a serious hot flash. And then, of course, from that time, that was when I was 48, from that time, I started to notice my periods were heavier, shorter, sharp, different, type of bleeding.
Yes.
You could barely make it through one tampon before you're flooded.
That's so interesting, because I experienced the same thing, and people think that going into menopause or in perimenopause, it will go less. But it was so much more.
So much more heavy. It's
my God.
It was like evacuation time. I was like, what's going on here?
Oh my God.
And I wasn't a person who experienced painful periods, just a little bit of puff. So I felt quite blessed, but that was extraordinary and unexpected. And from there, I just kind of went, when it stopped, it really just sharply stopped. And I moved into a completely different stage. And it was subtle. The changes were subtle. So I didn't necessarily see it in the elasticity of my skin. I didn't get big blues probably until I was about 53 or so. And then I started feeling what I call world sickness. I am a glass half full person by nature, and I started to feel a bit blue. And then I looked at my externals. I looked at where it was in my life and wondering, is this an external thing or is this an internal thing? And I've come to the conclusion that it was a combination of both, but it was enough. I felt low enough that I went to my doctor and I said, listen, I am really blue. She's like, look, you've lost, your hormones have changed. You really need to replenish. I come from a cluster group of cancer survivors, breast cancer survivors. So my mother, my sister, 3 of my mother's 5 sisters all had breast cancer, and my mother's mother. So I tested for the gene because they were concerned about giving me HRT. And I didn't have the gene, but kind of by the time I came to that conclusion and we had all of those results, it was almost a little bit too late to take HRT. In hindsight, I wonder if it was too late. And there was a lot of hype and bad press, as you know, around taking it, which turned out to be a bunch of bullshit.
Oh, my God.
You know, so I didn't take HRT. I was very active, making sure I ate right, I exercised, I was prescribed a low dose, antidepressant, which I took. And that did, that all kind of kept me on an even keel. But I did that for about 3 years. And then I sort of felt like I'm not quite feeling everything I should be feeling, which was weird too. Now, the impact of my work was not severe, to be honest, because I was on an even keel.
Yeah.
Once I took the antidepressants, I was quite even keeled. I didn't really suffer big drops or highs, but I always suffered heat.
Oh.
So annoying.
Yeah.
Try drinking a martini and breaking out in a cold sweat, and, 2 minutes later. You can't really drink a lot of alcohol. You can't, get into crowded spaces. Like certain things will just break you out in a sweat and you know it. So I always have a little fan.
Yeah.
A really nice little fan.
I love that. I love that. But that's so interesting about the alcohol, because I've heard so many women say this, like suddenly their tolerance for drinking alcohol goes right down, and one glass and they're pissed.
No, just, oh my God. Listen, if you can't, I couldn't honestly have very much alcohol at all. And I do like a martini. I come from a newsroom. I like to have a drink every once in a while. But I really started to realize even one drink was starting to turn my oven on. 2 drinks and I'm going to be sweating.
Yeah.
So, pretty profusely, really feeling the heat.
Yeah.
So it was very uncomfortable in that way. And, then eventually you just kind of go, okay, well, I'm not supposed to really be drinking like I was when I was 25 anyway. So you just stop. You start to realize all the things that set you off.
Yes.
And then you take those into consideration and work around it. But to be fair, I have my own company, so I was no longer in a corporate environment, except for going into my clients, so under my own umbrella. So it was up to me to educate myself on what menopause looks like.
Yeah.
Because my mother couldn't really give me a clear, picture of that. She just said, listen, it lasts a lot longer than you think. I know, exactly. And I was like, what's that mean? 14 years later, I'm still getting hot flashes. So, it lasts for bloody ever.
Yeah.
I have heard some women say they've just moved through it really quickly, but I still have heat. And it's tricky because I thought it was gone. And then about 2 years after no real heat, it came back.
Oh, no.
It just came back.
And what do you, so apart from the fan, was there anything else that would help you? Like, did you take anything else? Because obviously you still didn't want to do.
I've tried, different supplements and every, thing out there that says that it's going to balance your hormones and you're going to feel harmonious. To be honest, nothing worked for me. No. Even to this day, I'm still throwing the covers off and on over, at night. Yeah. I don't have those horrible wet the sheet through sweats anymore. But I still feel that, regulating my temperature is a big deal. It's uncomfortable. So I really feel for the women who are feeling the other symptoms, the brain fog.
Yeah.
And
did you not have that?
Not really. I was really, like I said, I was really fortunate. At this age, if I have brain fog, I'm attributing it to my age.
Yeah. Honestly.
But who knows?
I know, it's so weird.
It's a combination, I'm sure.
That was the thing that got me going to the doctor in the end. Like, I actually thought I had early onset Alzheimer's. because I couldn't remember anything. And the fog was like, it got so bad that I actually thought I would never be able to work again.
Oh.
And I went for a couple of years, and this is what got me into doing stand-up. I literally was just like, well, I can't work because I can't string a sentence again. Could tell some jokes though.
How can you remember the jokes?
Oh, well, I was good at ad-libbing. And weirdly, because the stories and stuff was easy to remember.
Exactly.
It was like important things, like even like a word that just wasn't in there anymore. And it was kind of scary.
Well, let me tell you, it gets worse. You can't believe it. I'm still trying to pull for words as we speak, you know. But I think the things that happen to a woman in general, the physiological things that happen to us, we really don't talk about it enough.
No.
We don't give each other the heads up. There's some taboo about not being able to discuss these critical things with each other.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to have the space to feel safe about talking about the crap that happens to your body as you age.
Yeah.
And to take that into perspective in the big picture is so important. So there's, you know, I know menopause has been topical now, and it's topical within businesses. But to be honest, 47% of women who are in positions of power or who are ambitious and climbing the ladder have said that menopause has had a profound impact on them. How they work, their productivity, that they are under-supported in their environments. And why aren't we really talking about this? That there's a lack of education, but also we've got to take some of the onus too. We are not educating ourselves enough.
Yeah.
We are not talking about it. So we need to be loud.
Yes.
We need to be loud and articulate these things. And that fear of vulnerability, being, you know, expressing yourself and saying and talking about it, we need to let that go.
Yeah.
I respect that. But at the end of the day, it's more important to talk about these things.
Absolutely.
And to share.
Yeah.
You know, sisterhood works.
Yeah, for sure. I think that I had no idea this was coming. I didn't even know perimenopause was a thing. And I'm very grateful, actually, that there is more information, especially through social media, about it, so that you can understand more what the symptoms, because there's so many symptoms, right? But there's still a bit of, I really notice that there is a bit of a hesitation for women to talk about it or to say it, or they will say it in close groups of other women, but it is almost like a shame thing that, and I wonder what that is about, because is it about feeling less like a woman, or I don't know.
It's interesting that or not wanting to be seen as vulnerable or weak in any way. I think that men are embarrassed when you talk about menopause, for the most part, even though they have wives and daughters that will eventually experience this. It's uncomfortable to talk about something that is physiological in a work or corporate or business environment, and it shouldn't be. There should be access to resources that make women feel comfortable and men comfortable to discuss it with them, so that there is empathy around it and understanding. It's the lack of clarity that really creates an environment where people feel, women in particular, feel unsupported. There is no clarity about what can happen and the impact that it has on you physically, but mentally, emotionally, and the impact it can have on your productivity.
Yeah.
So if you don't have that support in your work environment, you, of course, feel like isolated.
Yeah.
And you start to wonder. I mean, I have had women who just wondered if they're like you, like, am I losing my, my marbles?
Yeah.
You know, what's going on? I can't remember, one thought to the next. And no, actually, this is just part of the process that the journey that our bodies make.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that is that if you had really good support in the business environment, you wouldn't lose women like we are losing them now. You know, I think it's 31% of women actually from perimenopause to full-on menopause and starting to come out the other side feel like they have to leave their work environment. They feel like they can't cope.
Yeah.
And when you look at that, a woman coming into her perimenopausal years through to full-blown menopause has an incredible wealth of life and business experience. This is the biggest place that the pipeline falls down. This is where you're losing this amazing talent that should be your most senior talent at your top table, because there's a lack of support and understanding around menopause.
So true. I have seen it, and I only now realize that is likely the cause. I've seen women change careers or just quit or take early retirement, and you're like, but we need these women. We need these women in these big positions.
We so need these women, you know? And it's ageism.
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
Or oldism.
Oldism.
If you're past 60, it's oldism.
Yeah.
Just think, men are really in their stride at 60.
Yeah.
They're in their stride. They are there. We need to be there like that.
Yes.
We need to be able to show up like that. And that means having built-in learning and development around menopause to make sure that not just women, but men understand how they can support and be good male allies. It's shocking how many women don't really know what's happening.
Yeah.
It is. And that is on us. We have to take responsibility for ourselves. At the end of the day, you know, who's going to look after number one? You.
Yeah.
But the rate of kind of women not really knowing what to expect or what is happening, and there's a heightened awareness now, but still, the majority, it just hits them and they're like, what's happening?
Yeah. And they have no idea that this is actually something, there's a reason behind it. Like it took me 3 years to get to the point where I was like, oh, actually it might be this. And it is shocking the amount of tests, the amount of times I went to the doctor complaining of feeling so tired, so fatigued, like depressed. And I got everything. I got anti-anxiety medication, antidepressants. They sent me for loads of scans. I had UTI. I had so many things over those 3-4 years before I was like, oh, actually, maybe it's this. And I had, like, it was completely blindsided. And I considered myself an intelligent, capable woman, and I did not know. And it's so important that we then talk about it, that we say, I'm in perimenopause. This is what it's like for me. How do you feel? Do you think you're there? And that is also where sisterhood, or where women do well. Like, we need to really embrace this and share all our stories so that women don't go years before they figure out that this could be a thing.
That's the key. It is really the key. It's knowledge in those early years.
Yeah.
Because if you're armed with that knowledge, I think we're so busy living our lives that we just don't think about it. But we're not encouraged to think about it.
No.
We're encouraged to keep, it's just like period awareness.
Yeah.
You know, there was just a time where nobody talked about it, you know, and traditionally as a female tribe, you'd just be sent off when you're bleeding, you know, come back when it stops. So we're not encouraged. It's built in the fabric of our society to not talk about those things and to make them as deeply personal as they are, to almost make you feel ashamed about it.
Yeah.
And of course, women don't necessarily want to say that they're perimenopausal or menopausal because they feel that the impact on their career could be severe. So it's a double-edged sword. It is such a strange thing because it could really, it could be very beneficial to talk about it. But if you do talk about it, it's almost like you brand yourself.
Yeah.
In a work environment, in business. But if you did talk about it and you said, this is me, here I am, take me as I am and give me the support I need because I'm worth it, and you need me, then you would probably get it.
Yeah.
One, out of shock that you asked. And two, because they would see your value and that they would see your self-respect.
Yeah.
And they would value you for saying it.
Yeah.
It makes people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But really, in this day and age, are we really going to worry about, making people feel uncomfortable?
Yeah.
The world's a shambles.
Yeah.
We need to be able to have hard conversations. And this is hardly a hard conversation.
Exactly. And just representing yourself, saying like, this is not okay. And like, I need to figure out. And what would you say if a woman think they're getting into perimenopause and they're having symptoms and they're in a workplace and they're worried about how they're feeling? Have you got any advice for how to approach?
I think the first thing I would say to any client of mine who describes those symptoms, and I've had plenty of them say it, who think that, I've lost the plot, or they're looking at everything, all the externals in their lives and going, that's adding up to why I'm losing the plot. And then they finally go, oh, light bulb moment. Maybe I'm perimenopausal. Maybe I'm menopausal. I think that has something to do with it. It's like, that has a lot to do with it. That has a lot to do with your perspective.
Yeah.
So the first thing I say is go to the doctor. Go to the doctor, have a discussion. I'm really one who advocates for talk therapy as well, not just, going to get medicines that may help you move through menopause better, but talk therapy is so important, so useful. If you find the right therapist, really can help you put things in perspective. So I advocate for that. And then I say, I'm a coach. I've been there. I'm a woman. I can tell you how I've handled it. So sharing your personal experiences is also key to someone feeling like they can make it, they can manage it. I really feel so strongly about making sure women do not feel like they have to drop out in order to deal with this.
Yeah.
Because we desperately need that diversity and gender in the highest ranks of business.
Yes, absolutely. And do you think that, so in terms of like when women are really struggling, and I think one of the biggest symptoms for me, for example, one of the biggest symptoms for me was feeling really low and feeling really like angry or having really short fuse, and then feeling like a lot of shame around it. Being able to communicate to my employees how I was feeling. And that's especially when women are in leadership position and then going through a lot of these symptoms, not just physically, but also mentally. Being able to not just communicate with your peers or your bosses, but to people that you lead.
Your stakeholders. Listen, I am direct and quite transparent. And it has really worked for me. When I feel any which way that I feel is going to impact the people that I look after, I express that. I'm going through it.
Yeah.
I want to tell you all right now, I'm going through it. And I may say things that may not seem rational at the moment. I may be moody. It's not you. It's me. I'm traveling through a specific journey in my life. And I want you to know that now because I really care about all of you and your well-being. So if I'm a little bit titchy and a little bit out of control on occasion, you can say something to me so that I am aware, but be aware that I am self-aware, and we'll move through it together. I don't see a better way than communicating it like that.
Yes.
Just with truth.
100%.
Tell the truth.
Yes.
All this covering up and hiding and the shame that comes with it and the anger that you have to hide it, it all compounds going through it. So the less you can shed, more you can shed, the less you have to hide, the better off you're going to be. And you know, if you can't get with that, then I'm not supposed to be in your world and you're not supposed to be in mine.
Yeah. Absolutely. That was very well said. I totally agree. And communicating, you can't expect people to understand where you're at unless you're saying, this is where I'm at. And it might be hard to do, but that makes the biggest difference, being able to communicate it.
I think the thing I really stress is don't have that conversation in your head. You know, because we have these conversations in our head and it's very fluid up there.
Yeah.
But it never comes out of our mouths or in a way that people can understand it. So I'm like, don't overprocess. Because if you don't overprocess, you'll get it out. You're more likely to get it out right.
Yeah.
Yes, you have to be considerate, but don't overprocess.
Yeah.
It's just this is the natural course of life. We can't change this.
Yeah.
It's going to happen to the majority of us.
Yeah.
So why fight it?
Yes.
Let's just try to make it as smooth as possible through the ups and downs, the ins and outs. Let's just try to create the smoothest path possible.
Yeah. And it is so many of us. Like, I saw a stat about by 2030, there's going to be 1 billion women in perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. That is then the largest demographic. So it's very important that we do talk about it. Yes. Because if not, it's like, I also feel like if we don't talk about it and we don't communicate it, it is really bad for us. Because this is where then resentment or misunderstandings come out, and then the shame, and you think that you are somehow bad. But this is a natural thing, and it is hard. So being able to communicate how hard it is will make it easier, because everyone will understand better that this isn't a personal thing to them. It is something that's going through.
The other thing is that you have to take into consideration that it affects everyone differently.
Yes.
I mean, I've had friends and clients who have been devastated by it, and really needed to be under a doctor's care. It was devastating to them. And I've had people like myself who have felt it, who, only had a symptom or two and found ways to navigate it. And I've honestly had people who said, I barely knew I even had menopause.
Oh my God.
I'm like, what? Bitch?
How
unfair is that?
That is so... Oh my God. But that's kind of like unreal, but because I feel like it hit me so hard.
I do honestly know people who have just whoop.
Yeah.
That was that.
Wow.
I'm like so jealous.
Yes. Oh God. Yeah, that's a good thing as well. It's like
of course it is.
And this is also important to know, because if we expecting it to be really bad as well, it does change how we think about it. So you don't know. You have to wait till you don't know which symptoms you're going to get or what it's going to feel like for you. But knowing that which symptoms there are is important.
Well, also, I think it's quite classic. Women are not raised to put their needs first. Mm-hmm. So we shove everything that has to do with us to the back of the line. Or we have that classic, as soon as and when that's done, I'll And actually, it should be, I need to focus on number one so that I can actually look after the people that I need to look after. You know?
Yes.
I need to take care of me. And if you're not going to take care of you and prioritize yourselves during this particular time in your life, you're really going to suffer. So my philosophy is rewire your brain. Start thinking about you first, because it's for the benefit of not just you, but for everyone that you are responsible for. And if you don't do that, that is one of the reasons why women burn out.
Yes.
Because we are constantly putting our needs to the back of the queue. We're not prioritizing ourselves, and we are not conditioned by society to do that. So we take on more and more and more. We don that Superwoman cape, and we just don't understand that Superwoman is a cartoon character. She does not exist.
Exactly.
I'm like, stop it.
Yeah.
Drop that cape and get real. We need to think about us.
Yes.
Because if we did really think about ourselves as a collective and as individuals, we would be so much more powerful.
Yeah.
Women have so much to offer as leaders. And I truly believe the world would not be in the state that it is in now if we had more women leading.
Hallelujah.
It's true, girl. It's true. I know it's true.
Yeah. And this is that I 100% agree. And I do think about the Superwoman syndrome. I love that you use that. And I totally see myself in that. Like, I kept on going. I run an agency. I sold it. And then I kept on going. And then I just burnt out. And this was also at the same time as coming into perimenopause. And it was like nothing else I've experienced. You work with a lot of people to help them through burnout. What does it look like, and what can you do to prevent burning out?
It is quite funny because many of the symptoms of menopause are symptoms of burnout. But it is that lack of energy, dazed, confused, physical trauma, so aches, pains, migraines, the inability to get up out of bed in the morning, lack of appetite, just running on empty. You feel like you are running on empty, unable to complete just ordinary tasks. And what we do, we just run until finally we can't. Like, we physically feel emotionally and mentally drained. And the first thing is to recognize that you need to pay attention to your body, to pay attention to the symptoms. They're signs. Trust me, Lisa, I'm sure you had the signs.
For sure. I definitely did.
So I ask you, why didn't you pay attention to the signs, girl?
Because I did exactly that. It's like, if I can just do this, and I can rest when I do that. If I can just get to this bit, and I kept on moving it further and further away, I will rest. I will consider myself. I will put myself first. When? To the degree that I was, I had a therapist during that period, and he asked me the question, how do you like your eggs? And I couldn't answer him. I had nothing. I was like, I like however they come, like what is everyone else having? And I realized I'd spent so much of my life putting everyone else first. And that was my job. It was almost like I had to change my identity, because my job, my self-worth, my identity was someone that takes care of everything. For everyone.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to do now.
Yeah. And how'd that work out?
It was such a crash.
It's a crash and burn.
Yeah.
It's a crash and burn. And what happens is that it's like a carrot dangling. we can see a target. Oh, we can see the carrot. We can see the carrot. And we can see that finish line. So you keep following the carrot. But your body is saying, no.
Yeah.
Where are my boundaries? No boundaries. Boundaries are gone.
Yeah.
And when people see that you don't have boundaries, they will take advantage of you every time. She has no boundaries. So she keeps saying yes when the word no should come out of her mouth. How many times have we had that happen when someone offers you something, offers you a challenge that looks good, but it's really not in your wheelhouse or you shouldn't do it and you're worried about being a team player, so you're going to say yes when you really should say no. I'm like, no is the most beautiful word. No is a sign of self-respect.
Yeah.
No is about boundaries. Do not cross my boundary because I will knock you out.
Yes.
You need to have the boundaries. You need to have the protection space. Sometimes we can let people poke the boundary, and that's okay. But when the boundary is violated again and again and again, and you're letting it happen, it is a lack of self-respect.
Yes.
And if you don't respect yourself, who's going to respect you?
For sure. And it's such a hard lesson to learn because you don't really see it until you're already down on the ground.
There you go.
And then you're like, oh my God, who am I? Like, why am I doing this to myself? And learning to say, and it was like such a small steps of like setting boundaries. And for me, it was particularly in my personal life. Like in business, I was so concentrated on the goals that I was able to create boundaries around things. But when it came to personal life, I just didn't have any. So the relationships, it was so codependent and so not about me at all. But when I woke up to that though, and this is the amazing thing, and this is what I think is so great about perimenopause and coming into this stage of life, because the hormones are changing in your brain. It also makes you go, absolutely fucking not. And suddenly it is like you're not even thinking it before you go like, fuck you, I am not doing it. And then once you've said it a few times, and then you, like for me at least, that journey, I did a lot of like personal development things, and I had therapists, and I started trying to get into my own body. And that's one of the weirdest things for me, is that because I'd been so much into action and been a leader for so many years and had so many goals, I couldn't feel my body. Like I didn't feel like it was in the same space. And so in addition to like talking therapy and doing a lot of work, I realized that I am not connected to myself.
That's such a fundamental thing, that you really were just like a bot.
Yeah.
You were just going and going and going and going to the point that you were disconnected from your physical self. Mm-hmm. That's so intense. And the fact that we don't stop long enough to remember that we are only human. Perfection doesn't exist. It is flawed thinking. To understand when enough is good enough is critical to your overall well-being. And you said something very interesting to me, and that is that in your business life, you're gung-ho. Mm-hmm. You're going to win. Everybody knows you're a winner. And in your home life, you're codependent. But what we tend to do is to put each things in little boxes.
Yes.
And when you do that, eventually one of the boxes opens and explodes, and it's like Pandora's box. It's mayhem. You are one person. I coach on a holistic way, knowing that each facet of your life interacts with the other facets of your life. And the more you address yourself as a whole, the better you're going to be.
Yeah.
Bring your whole self. We've heard that a lot lately. But honestly, Bring your whole self to the table. Respect your whole self. Hold your head high. Expect other people, some people not to like you, and some people to like you very much. But the most important thing, I really, like everyone else, feel it's wonderful to be loved and liked. But if you don't love and like me, I really don't give a shit, because I love and like myself.
Yeah.
And I will treat myself with respect. And that means being authentic. That means putting it out there. That means being respectful to others and treating others as you would have them treat you. And I have found that when you do approach life that way, more people than not get it and respect you.
Yeah.
And treat you better.
Absolutely.
So it starts with you. It's readjusting your mindset, whether it's in the early years, the perimenopausal years, the later years. It doesn't matter. The earlier you start with self-respect, the better you are going to be at every single facet of your life, and the greater leader you will become.
Absolutely.
Because people follow people that are true.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I 100% think that is and this is the weird thing. It's like, I was like that at work. Like, I could really connect with people. But then it was like, I was almost like falsely telling myself that who I was at work was who I was all the time. Because I really genuinely think, like, my consultancy is called ECTA, which means authentic, real. And has always been like my main value, to be authentic. But I had abandoned myself and my needs in other areas. And I think a lot of women do this. And I think this is where it becomes really particularly difficult in that perimenopause. Once you get to your mid-40s, the kids might be older, you're in a higher position, or maybe in leadership at work, and you've juggled everything, and convinced yourself you got it all sorted out, you're on top of it, and then suddenly perimenopause hits and you're like, what the fuck?
This is so unfair.
So for me, it was actually quite a blessing, because it stopped me in my tracks. I couldn't work, and suddenly I had to look in, and I was like, wait a second. My standards in relationships, or my standards for a lot of personal relationships, was so low, people were falling over it.
Well, see, that's it, isn't it? It's, especially if you're ambitious. So, ambition can blind you as well. So if you're on a, mission, which I completely understand because I am an ambitious woman, if you're on a mission, you can be blinded by it. Yeah. It gives you the ability to shrug off things, niggling things that are bothering you or impacting you or physically affecting you or mentally affecting you. You just got to go, that's just a blip. It's a blip. It's a blip. But actually, if you stop and you recognize those things quite early on, it only will make you healthier, smarter, better. It's being able to see that. It's a self-awareness from an early age. The earlier you have this kind of self-awareness, the more you talk about it, the more you share your experiences, the better off you're going to be before you hit those points in time that are real struggles, real physical struggles, mental, emotional struggles for you. Because you will have had practice, self-care all along the way. Women are just not conditioned by society to focus on self-care.
Yeah.
We are trained to care for others. That is where our EQ is. There's this falsity that men and women have different, men don't have EQ and women have EQ. Men have EQ. They have the same amount of EQ as we do. But theirs is on survival, self-survival. That's where their EQ lies. And our EQ is about nurturing and building relationships. To me, the best EQ is down the middle. the ability to look after number one, but also the ability to nurture those relationships that are necessary and are important to you. It's a happy medium.
Yeah.
But it doesn't come naturally for most people.
Yeah. I had on my vision board for 3 years, at the very end when I was running my agency, I had a cutout of the airplane emergency thing, which said, put your own mask on first before helping others. But it didn't do anything because I wasn't doing it. But like I knew I needed to do it. But I kept on like pushing it.
Well, but that's it. It's
Yeah.
like we know intellectually that we should put the mask on first.
Yes.
But because it's so deeply ingrained in our fabric, we don't do it. We just don't do it because that's not tradition.
Yeah.
That's not what we've been taught. We've been taught to put everybody else's needs before ours. And that only comes to harm. It comes to a lack of satisfaction. It comes to a lack of well-being and happiness, the most underestimated emotion. It comes to a lack of happiness. And quite frankly, you don't want to hit middle age and not feel some happiness
Yeah.
and satisfaction. You don't want to look back and go, I facilitated everybody else's life but my own. Well, you might have money in the bank, you might even have power, but this big thing is missing. And it's compounded by the journey that your body is taking you through, the physiological journey that your body is going to take you through for a decade, at least.
At least. Thank you so much for that. That was so spot on. I know that you have just been writing a book. Can you tell me a little bit about your book?
Yes, it's called The Quiet Burn, The Ambitious Woman's Guide to Recognizing and Preventing Burnout. It's been a 2-year love-hate, no, 2.5-year love-hate journey for me. I've been asked to write a book twice before, and I said no because I thought that they wanted to kind of pigeonhole me into what I could write and who the audience would be. And I wanted to write something that would impact all working women. And I had seen so many of my clients hit various stages of burnout, including myself. And I've had an awakening. And I just said, you know what? This is about how we think about ourselves, how we don't respect ourselves enough, how we don't put boundaries in place, how we're conditioned to think. And I just kind of got mad.
Yes.
I got mad and I said, you know what? This just isn't right. I want this to be a manifesto for reframing how we look at ourselves, how we value ourselves, what we believe about ourselves, to be able to live a better, more empowered life. And I sat down and wrote that book. And the book itself was written quite, I think probably in 6 months or so. But it's been the journey of going through the publishing process and all of that has been so eye-opening, and how much you can say and where, how much of your voice is still in the text that ends up, on the bookshelf. But I think I've owned it. I think I've owned it, and it is there to, be a kind of a Bible for women to go, this is what it looks like. This is what burnout looks like. This is probably the reason why you're ignoring the signs of burnout. And this is how you can recover if you, really go down in flames. So it's like a candle burning until we just get to this little wick. And you hope that only, maybe you just burn down a little and have the dribbles of wax down the side before you open up your eyes and say something's wrong. But it doesn't usually happen like that. Burnout is really insidious. It just plays on us. It shows itself in a variety of ways. Like you said, sometimes it's like, I can't remember something. Sometimes it's a niggling pain. For me, I really realized that I had ignored a physical pain so long that I ended up having to have a severe back operation. And I'm now the proud owner of a titanium cage and 3-inch screws in my back.
Oh my God.
So my burnout manifested in chronic back pain. And 3 years prior to surgery, my doctor had said, we can just do some minor things that will adjust your back problem. And I was like, I'll get along. I'll get there one day. Yeah. I know better. So I just literally ignored the pain until I wasn't walking properly.
Oh my God.
Like, what is wrong with me? But I just kept pushing on an agenda. Not paying attention, looking after family, looking after my clients, thinking I was Superwoman, goddess of love and war. I can do it all. Just call me Athena, and Athena with Aphrodite thrown in,
Oh my God.
I just was clueless about my physical self. Mind you, I have generally always exercised. I was an All-American swimmer, so I'm used to the discipline of exercising and eating well. But I ignored a big physical pain. And it was painful until I couldn't ignore it anymore and had to have major back surgery.
Wow.
And when I was down, I wasn't just down, I was out. They left a tiny little bone after the surgery that was rubbing on my nerve, and I had to go back in and have a second surgery to remove that tiny little piece of bone.
Oh, yeah.
I was on pregabalin, 1,800 milligrams every day.
What's that?
It's like a painkiller, nerve killer.
Oh my God.
And I was still trying to work.
Oh.
While I was on that, so I would be doing 3-day summits and kind of slurring because this was
Oh my God.
During towards the end of COVID, it was crazy. It was insane what I was trying to do. And finally, I just had the wake up calls. It's like, you know what? I'm spent.
Yeah.
I'm spent, and I have to stop.
Yeah.
And also, I wasn't following my own manifesto, practicing what I preach.
Yeah.
All this time I was telling my clients, listen, shut up, pay attention to the signs, pay attention to the signs. You need to slow down. This sounds crazy.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just have to be hit with the sledgehammer.
Yeah. Yes.
Like you, we required sledgehammers.
Yeah. There's the only thing that will slow me down is a bloody sledgehammer. But I also think that one of the almost the biggest shame for women is our ability to endure pain.
Yes. But we give birth, don't we?
And
so
that actually makes it worse because we think we should.
We think we should. We think we should endure pain. That's really what we're conditioned to do. So you get, I am not a mule. I am not a pack mule. Don't load me up and think that I can just walk you through all of it.
Oh my God, I'm getting all teary.
We're not pack mules.
Yeah.
But we have like a pack mule mentality.
Yeah. Load me up.
Load me up. I can do it.
Yeah.
I can do it. Hell no, you can't do it.
Yes. You haven't gone back.
Yes. Literally, have a broken back.
Yeah.
So, but why did I have to learn it that way?
Yeah. Maybe because you needed to write this book. Maybe you needed to learn the lesson.
There was no question I needed to unload it.
Yes.
I needed to get to the point where, and I like to think I do practice what I preach, but in a fundamental way, I missed a lesson.
Yeah.
A critical lesson. And I just got tired of seeing other women miss the lesson until they were ashes. But of course, from ashes rises a phoenix.
Yes.
We can rise. But we do need to reprogram our thinking so that we don't hit rock bottom. Because what happens, and people have this misconception that, oh, I'm burnt out, I'm going to take 4 days off. It's like,
4 days.
4 days. 4 days might turn into 4 years.
Yeah.
If you pay attention to the signs early, yeah, you can take 4 days or take a week. But if you get to a certain point where you have broken the camel's back, honestly, you may not recover for years. I have a client who's a C-suite client, and she went through some major trauma. She's also a control freak. Really super, super bright woman, very successful. She had one major trauma. She ignored all the signs, and she came to a breaking point. And when she broke, she was broken. She's had several C-suite positions since, and she can't hold on to them for more than a year.
No.
So if you let yourself get to that point, you hit that critical point, don't think that you can turn it around quickly.
No.
And in the worst case scenario, maybe you'll never turn it around because you'll have post-traumatic stress. So we have got to listen to our bodies. We need increased self-awareness. We have to understand that there is no such thing as perfect. There is no such thing as superwoman. But we also have to understand that when things happen and we're put upon, we should be going, why me?
Yeah.
Because we should be creating situations where abundance should come to us. People should respect us. Our boundaries are in place, that we deserve, that we are enough. And that question should be, why not me?
Yeah.
I deserve all the goodness in the world. I deserve your respect. I command it because I'm worth it. So I'm going to treat myself like a goddess. Yeah. And then everyone will have the goodness that a goddess gives.
Yeah.
And that is critical to our thinking. It is not selfish to practice self-care. And we often think it is selfish. You have to practice self-care.
Absolutely.
It really just makes logical sense, but for some reason, we can't see the sense in it.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of it.
Yes.
I've had enough of it. I don't want to see it. And I never, ever want to be in that spot again. Never.
Good.
It's like,
Me though.
ask for what you want.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Ask for what you want. Demand it. Why not me mentality. All those lessons in the book.
Great. I'm going to make sure that I put the link to the book in the show notes.
Fantastic.
The book is out.
It's out on May 13th. There's already an Amazon holding page,
Good.
and it will be in, the normal bookstores. So,
Excited.
yeah, and I'm sure I'll be hopefully touring and promoting it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This has been such an amazing conversation. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's been my great pleasure, Lisa. It really has been.
So good. That's so good. Hello again. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. I would really love to hear any feedback you might have or comments, or maybe you have a suggestion to a topic we should cover. You can get my email on the website or send me a message on Instagram. Please do follow the podcast and maybe even leave us a 5-star review. It really helps to get the message out. See you next week.